Hey, sports fans, you know the sound, you know the time. It's time for another episode of the Unbiased podcast. I'm your host, as always, Mr. Unbiased, Connor Bennion. Today is Tuesday, November 15th, 2022. Let me readjust my iPad and turn down the brightness because it always gives that glare. And let's jump right in because we've got plenty to cover, as we always do. I know soccer may not be the biggest sport followed by most Americans. I know that NFL is king, but I did want to start that the season is finally upon us. FIFA World Cup 2022 in Qatar starts this week. Technically, it starts this week. Not for Team USA, but this week, Sunday, I gotta make sure I have my game correctly. And I apologize, I don't know. I just looked on Google, so I don't know if the time is Eastern or if this is the time local. But Qatar, the hosts Ecuador on Sunday, November 20th. Again, Google says 9 a.m., so I don't know if that's 9 a.m. like Mountain Standard Time here in Perry, or if that's 9 a.m. Eastern. Nevertheless, Sunday, the World Cup begins. USA's march begins, and I'll review their games super quick. And when I say review, I'll just tell you the dates. Again, maybe the time, actually all at the same time. The dates, opponents, and I'll just break it down super quick because we have so much to talk about, and I want to get these videos pumping just a little bit quicker because I feel like I can review everything just at a quicker pace without babbling and making sure that it's hard and making sure that you can still understand me. But for Team USA, on Monday, November 21st at noon, they play Wales, and that's why I did want to jump in, is because by next Tuesday, we'll already have a game under our belt, and we'll probably know a lot more about this team. So they play Wales Monday, November 21st at noon. Friday, they have their biggest clash with England, November 25th, again at noon as well. And then, and then they play Iran, November 29th, which is a Tuesday at noon. So just to quickly break it down and then move on from the World Cup, the reason I am so ecstatic about this World Cup and what I think is so interesting is not only this is the first appearance since 2014 for Team USA, they failed to qualify for the 2018 World Cup. The reason I find this fascinating is because, again, and why all three matches are important is because Team USA is in a very favorable group, in my opinion. You know, I think they're the favorite over Wales. I think they're the favorite over Iran. And it just reminds me of, in 2014, they played... Sorry, trying to get those out of the way and limit them. In their group, they played Germany, and, you know, it ended up being Germany was the winner, and then Team USA was the runner-up, and so they advanced out of their group. But I look at this group, I look at this team, I think of this team, and I remember last year's team in Legion Stadium in the, I believe it was CONCACAF Nations Championship, in Legion Stadium, against a Mexico team that had gone to the Olympics. This was Mexico's ultimate, this was the team that Mexico had pieced together to win this championship, the team that played at the Olympics, and Team USA won in extra time. And so I think this USA team, they definitely have plenty to grow, plenty to do. They have a lot to grow on. But I look at them and I say, if they can, again, they're the favorite against Iran, they're the favorite against Wales, and if they can find a way to beat England, you advance out of your group as the group winner and get a very favorable schedule for the most part. So I'm looking forward to this World Cup because we just don't know. There's a lot that we don't know. It's been 8 years. I look at a player like Christian Pulisic, who is succeeding at one of the highest levels in the Premier League. And I am super excited for Team USA. I'll be watching all my games. I got my jerseys, I got my scarves, I got my hats. It'll be so great to see. I'll probably do Babbling Bennion episodes. My other podcast, I'll drop a link below. for that channel. I'll probably talk about that more and break it down because it's a quicker, easier podcast. Again, I'll only be able to review really one game, or like I say, it'll be like I'll just be reviewing once a week Team USA's progress. So for a better in-depth analysis, probably check out the Babbling Bennion on Team USA. But again, it was longer than I was anticipating to talk about them, but I am incredibly excited for the World Cup. Again, check it out. Sunday at 9 a.m. is the World Cup opener, and then Team USA plays Wales on Monday, November 21st at noon. That is all we're going to talk about in regards to Team USA. We're going to move right along. We're going to jump into the NBA. Got to talk about those Utah Jazz. Now, here's the thing I'm going to talk about the Utah Jazz. They're on a 2-game losing streak. They went and lost. They lost 2 out of their 3 on their little road trip. They beat Atlanta Wednesday, and then they lost. And now I think about it, those are the 3 games that we're going to talk about since we last saw each other. Atlanta on Wednesday. They beat Atlanta on Wednesday. Saturday, they lost at the Wizards. And then Sunday, they lost at the 76ers. Joel Embiid had a career night. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about those. But So here's the thing. As I pull up the Jazz, what I want to bring up with the Jazz at 10-5, they were the first NBA team to make 10 wins this season. The crazy part for the Jazz, looking at their schedule, is of their 15 games, they've played at Minnesota, at New Orleans, at Houston, at Denver. They've played at Dallas, at Lakers, at Clippers, that's 7, and then at Atlanta, at Washington, at Philadelphia. They're 10-5. And of those 15 games, 10 have been on the road. And they are unbeaten at home. Those 5 home games are wins. And so they're a lot better at home. However, they're still pretty good on the road. And again, they're playing back-to-back rather consistently. They have one of the most difficult schedules in the NBA to start the season. And they've emerged at 10-5. They were first in the West, I think, obviously with the 2-game losing streak. Actually, I can tell you right now, with a 2-game losing streak in the West, Portland is first at 9-4 because they have less losses, 1 less win, and then Denver's 9-4. Jazz again 10-5. They're third in the West, but they're playing one of the hardest schedules. They're playing back-to-backs. They're looking so good. They just, again, what I will probably talk about throughout the course of the season is the fact that, to me, they're playing sustainable basketball. On Sunday night, to break it down with their game against Philadelphia. So they ended up losing by 7. They were in this game. They, at one point, they were up, I'm doing my math here. They were up by, it looks like 6 at half, but they were up by, I think, 14 at one point. Joel Embiid goes for 59 points, and it wasn't due to lack of trying. The Jazz threw everybody and every look they had, and he was just on. Joel Embiid's not going to drop 59 every night. So I was still pleased with the loss. Again, it's going to happen. And the way that they played coming off of a back-to-back, there was a lot of positives, a lot of good to take from that. But I look at the Jazz, and I think that Joel Embiid had a career night, and in the last 4 minutes of the fourth quarter, in a very close one-possession game, the Jazz just went cold. It's going to happen. Shots aren't going to drop. But I look at this Jazz team, and again, to me, they're just playing sustainable basketball. They are not a fluke. Knock on wood, I don't want this to age badly. But I don't think they're a fluke. I think they're for real. I am ecstatic to continue to talk about them as we continue on because they have a team mentality. Coach Will Hardy is the man for the future. Really looking forward to see where this Jazz team goes. Again, from the last time that we talked, they beat Atlanta on the road. They lost to the Wizards on Saturday and then lost to the 76ers on Sunday. They play tonight. They go back to Vivint Arena and host the New York Knicks. And I'll be there. Don't you worry. So go Jazz Nation. I'll be there for all of us. That is all we're going to review on the NBA. We're pumping through, and we're going to hit the college football world. week after week, it just gets turned on its head. Let me grab my paper so I can talk about my predictions. Ultimately, in regards to my predictions, my overall record is 128-90. So, getting there. Probably a little more losses than I would have hoped for at this point. That's not a problem. Regarding my NCAA record, it is 45-23, so 20 games, over 500. This week was arguably the best week of my college football predictions for the reason that I went 6-0. I do have to admit I did omit, and again I'm going to blame the fact that I was trying to balance the AP ranking and the college football playoff ranking. I did forget to mention that number 6 Oregon was playing number 24 Washington. I always talk about ranked matchups, which is funny. Which is funny because I would have picked Oregon and they ended up losing. So I technically am 6-1, but I technically didn't make the prediction because I missed it. So anyway, so for what I did predict, I was 6-0. I was correct on all my games this week. Stanford was at number 13, Utah in their senior night. Utah absolutely obliterated Stanford 42-7. Utah State was at Hawaii, and Utah State ended up winning this game 41-34, and I picked Utah State. Idaho State was at Weber State, and I had Weber State winning this game on a rebound, and they did handily 45-7. Number 4, TCU was at number 18, Texas. TCU is who I picked, and they ended up winning this game 17-10. Huge resume builder, really locking in that TCU, again, they're on pace to obviously appear in the college football playoff. Number 10, Alabama was at number 11, Ole Miss. I had Alabama winning this game, and even though they were down 10-0 and then 17-7, even though they were down 10 at 2 different occasions, Alabama ended up winning this game 30-24, which just quickly about Alabama, because again, as an Alabama fan, I'm just going to say the interesting thing is, like I said on the Babbling Bennion, their playoff hopes, they're literally not over. Like, there's a chance, but they're practically over. But interestingly enough, of course, with losses only to, at the time, top 10 ranked Tennessee and top 10 ranked LSU, they're in a great position to go play in a New Year's Six-Day bowl game, Alabama is. So, again, what's so interesting is there are a lot of teams that would love to appear in the New Year's Six-Day bowl game. For Alabama, it is seen as a down year. So, super interesting there. Anyway, moving on. But I did have Alabama, and they were victorious 30-24. And then number 16, Tulane, was at number 22, UCF. And I had UCF winning this game, and they did win 38-31. Upsets that we saw, again, one that absolutely, and I shouldn't say flipped the college football world on its head, but definitely impacted the playoff race. Number 6, Oregon, lost at home to number 24, Washington, 37-34. Number 12, UCLA, fell to Arizona, 34-28. So 2 big dogs in the Pac-12. Both drop home games on Saturday night. Number 16, North Carolina State, lost to Boston College, 21-20. Again, you can officially you have to count Tulane. And that's actually number 17, Tulane. Sorry, I said number 16. Number 17, Tulane versus number 22, UCF. Again, UCF won that game 30-31. Again, that close in the history of UCF. Sorry. I don't know if officially was an upset. I picked it because it didn't surprise me. Number 21, Illinois, fell to Purdue, 31-24. And then number 24, Kentucky, lost to Vanderbilt, 24-21. That ended Vanderbilt's, I swear it was like a 20-something game losing streak in the SEC. So, sorry, Kentucky, you're on the wrong end of history. So those are the upsets that we saw. Again, technically, I should have had a loss because I would have picked Oregon, and they lost to Washington. So the reason I say, and this hits home, the reason I say the college football world is turned on its head. And maybe not so much the college football world, so much as the Pac-12 world. Because again, just organizing the Pac-12, this is how it stands. In the Pac-12, I'm pulling up the stat line. So in the Pac-12, you have USC is 9-1. They have a loss to Utah. You have Oregon, who is I was looking at the overall. USC's conference record is 7-1. Their one loss is to Utah. Oregon is 6-1, lost to Washington. Utah is 6-1, lost to UCLA, but beat USC. UCLA is 5-2, lost to Oregon, beat Utah, lost to Arizona. And so those top four, again, USC lost to Utah, but USC lost to Utah, Utah lost to UCLA, UCLA lost to Oregon, Oregon lost to Washington. Like, it is just all sorts of jumbled. As of right now in the Pac-12, you got to remember, it's only the top two teams make the Pac-12 championship. They went away with their divisions. And again, it's also crucial because as of right now, USC at 7-1 and 9-1 overall is leading the conference. And then it's Oregon, 8-2 overall, 6-1 in conference. Then it's Utah, and then it's UCLA, and then it's Washington. Those are your top five. The crazy part, we'll get to this in just a second, Utah plays at Oregon, and USC plays at UCLA. The two biggest games of the Pac-12 year happen on the same day, and ultimately, to me, determine who will play in the conference championship game. We'll get to that in a second because both of those games are on my prediction paper. But ultimately, because I look at it and I say USC, should they beat UCLA, they actually play Stanford in their last week, so their conference play will be over. So if USC wins over UCLA, they literally clinch a spot. If Oregon was victorious over Utah, it wouldn't officially clinch a spot because they would still have one more game to play in the conference. Oregon plays at Oregon State, and then Utah plays at Utah plays at Colorado, and then UCLA ends the season at California. So again, one loss obviously can make the difference. So they're continuously fascinating. The Pac-12, I'll continue to update you. Again, like I was saying, the games that we'll review, two of them are important, and we'll talk about it. Coming off the bye week, super quick, Utah Tech plays at BYU. This is BYU senior day. BYU's going to win this game. I've got them winning, and I guess I shouldn't say they're going to win this game, but anyway. Number 10, Utah. Again, this is AP standings. Number 10, Utah's at number 12, Oregon. Again, if Utah wins, I believe they're in the Pac-12 championship. But I'm going to pick Oregon. And I know the biggest argument is Utah pounded Oregon twice last season. And I get you, and I hear you. Number one, I think home field advantage sometimes does make that big of a difference. And this game is at Outson Stadium in Oregon is one reason I've got Oregon. But ultimately, and this is like my honest opinion, I think the struggle for Utah and where they're getting the bummer end of the deal and why Utah wanted Oregon to beat Washington, which I know sounds crazy because when Oregon lost to Washington, at the time they were undefeated in the Pac-12 and Utah already had 2 losses. So you sit there and think, okay, Con, that doesn't make any sense. You didn't want them to win. You didn't want them to lose to help you get back in the standings. The reason I say that I don't think you'd want Oregon to lose to Washington is purely because and I apologize, I don't have this statistic, but Oregon, with that loss, that snapped a long-running home win streak. And I just don't see how Oregon goes from and again, I apologize, I don't have the statistic in front of me, but I swear it's like a 30-something game home win streak. Maybe it was 20-something, and maybe it was only conference play. But they had this long, drawn-out home win streak, again, whether it was overall or in conference play. I think it was just overall. To have it snapped and then turn around the next week with a chance to really put your foot on and solidify your spot in the Pac-12 championship, and to see Oregon lose, I just don't see it happening that way, unfortunately. I think they get the raw end of the deal because Utah's going to be facing an Oregon team coming off of a loss at home with a chance to almost, again, claim a Pac-12 championship spot. Like, that's just a lot to ask. So I feel like Utah would have had better odds had Oregon beat Washington. I think Utah would beat Oregon in Oregon, and then you bank on and hope that they lose to Oregon State and you own the tiebreaker. Again, I get that's not much hope. That's where that sorry, I'm trying to think of Utah's conference schedule. Because okay, sorry. That's why I was confused. I was like, what is going on here? Sorry. Utah does not have a second conference loss. That's why I was so confused. If Oregon would have beat Washington and Utah would have beat Oregon, Utah would own the tiebreaker over Oregon because they would have had their one loss. They both would have had the same conference record should Oregon beat Oregon State, which I think is likely, and Utah beat Colorado, which I think is likely. All of a sudden, both teams are 7-1, but Utah owns the tiebreaker. Unfortunately, I just don't see Utah beating Oregon. So I apologize, kind of backtracking, cleaning up. I apologize. I was so confused. I was like, wait, these standings. I was thinking of UCLA had 2 losses. Oregon, it would have benefited Utah if Oregon would have been undefeated in conference play going into their game against Utah, beating Washington, because I think Utah would have beat Oregon and owned the tiebreaker. That's what I was trying to clear up. I apologize. The standings have just got me loopy and crazy again. Sometimes these early morning videos, maybe they aren't the best idea. But I want to keep pounding through because we're doing great on time. But again, unfortunately, this goes back. I've got Oregon beating Utah, and I truly think it's because Oregon lost to Washington. They will rebound, and they're not going to go on a 2-game losing streak, especially with a chance to go to the Pac-12 championship almost solidified. So unfortunately, I've got to pick Oregon. I'd love to see Utah win because, again, if Utah wins, I think they have just set their ticket for a Pac-12 championship berth. And because they beat USC, they own the tiebreaker. If USC were to beat UCLA and go 8-1 in conference, and Utah were to go 8-1 in conference, Utah owns the tiebreaker, and so they would actually be the number 1. Again, that doesn't mean that they host the game. The Pac-12 championship is at Allegiant Stadium, so it really doesn't mean much other than pride. But I'd love to see Utah win this game, but I've got to go with Oregon, unfortunately. And again, really that ends the Pac-12 championship berth run for Utah. And what's even more brutal is if they don't make the Pac-12 championship game, I don't think they make a New Year's 6-day bowl game. Maybe they do. I just think with how loaded it is, I think the championship game is going to be USC and Oregon. And obviously the winner goes either to the college football playoff or a New Year's 6-day bowl game, and maybe the runner-up. But with how packed the top 15 is with the SEC, the Big Ten, Oregon State, Ohio State, and Michigan, both in there, I just realized I forgot to do the top 25 rankings. So I'll hit that in just a second. But with how packed it is, I think it's either Rose Bowl for Utah or, a non-New Year's 6-day bowl game, which is a bummer, especially with the season that they're having. Let me pause the predictions real quickly because I can go back to them. Let me hit you with the top 25. Again, this is the AP top 25 poll from this week. Number 1, Georgia. Number 2, Ohio State. Number 3, Michigan. Number 4, TCU. Number 5, Tennessee. That's unchanged. Sorry, I'm looking at this and sorry, this is a little embarrassing. It says that number 6 is Oregon, but they just lost to Washington. I apologize. I have no idea who number 6 is. I still have Oregon as 6, which is funny because I typed up this paper. So that is incredibly useless and embarrassing. Let me pull up super quick the AP top 25 and let me get you the real number 16 because every other ranking is correct except that number 6 ranking. I apologize. This is super embarrassing, but who knows? I filled out that paper late last night, so no surprise there. Sorry, number 6 is LSU. I better read off of the iPad. Number 6 is LSU. Number 7's USC. Number 8's Alabama. Number 9 is Clemson. That's what I'm missing, Clemson. Number 10, Utah. Number 11, Penn State. Number 12, Oregon. Number 13, North Carolina. Number 14, Ole Miss. Number 15, Washington. Number 16, UCLA. Number 17, UCF. Number 18, Notre Dame. Number 19, Kansas State. Number 20, Florida State. Number 21, Tulane. Number 22, Cincinnati. Number 23, Coastal Carolina. Number 24, Oklahoma State. And number 25, Oregon State. So that's your top 25. I apologize for butchering that. I had Oregon on 12 in the game prediction. I just forgot to change that on the ranking and I messed up. So my apologies. Those are your top 25. Back to the games that I predicted so far. Utah Tech at BYU. BYU wins. Utah at Oregon. I've got Oregon winning this game, unfortunately. And again, to me, ending Utah's Pac-12 championship hopes and New Year's Six-Day Bowl game hopes. San Jose State is at Utah State. I've got San Jose State winning this game, but it's going to be a tough one and a close one because both teams record-wise are pretty similar. Both teams play a physical style. I liked Utah State's ability to score against Weber State. Sorry, I've got Weber State on this paper. Hawaii, they put up 41 points, but I'm going to pick San Jose State in this game. Weber State, who apparently I can't get off my tongue, is at Northern Arizona, and I've got Weber State winning this game. And then again, the game that Utah fans are going to watch very closely, number 8 USC is at number 17 UCLA. The reason you're also watching this game is because I've got USC winning this game on the road, a tough one, but I've got them winning this game. But this game is super important to watch because with Utah beating USC, if USC loses this game, then it gets really, really messy. Because if USC loses this game and Utah loses to Oregon, Oregon will be the number 1 team in the Pac-12 with 1 conference loss. But then what's crazy is, if I have this right, UCLA owns the tiebreaker over Utah because Utah would then have a second loss. UCLA has 2 losses, but they have the win over Utah, so they own the tiebreaker. And then Utah owns the tiebreaker over USC. So instead of Utah being 4th in the conference with 2 losses, they would be 3rd behind UCLA, who beat Utah earlier. So, again, if Utah loses, they want to see USC lose to UCLA. But I've got USC winning this game. I think Lincoln Riley's got USC going back to the program they used to be. Not so much national championship contender, just so much as a really good team. I think that they will be the king of the Pac-12, or at least a major competitor again for a while. But I've got USC winning this game. I really like the way that they play, and I like them clinching a spot in the Pac-12 championship game. So I apologize as we've struggled through, with some of my bad rankings and some of my misunderstanding or bad memory on the standings. That is all we'll cover for college football. We'll move to the NFL, going blitz through on the NFL games and my prediction. This week was a brutal week in the NFL, I'll tell you. I went from the best college week I had to the worst NFL week I had. My NFL record is 83-67. So again, I'm just hanging out there again. I like to be somewhere close to over 20 games over 500 again. I'm not quite there. That's only 16. This week was tough for me. I ended up going 5-9 in the NFL, and some of these games are ridiculous. Falcons were at the Panthers. I had the Falcons winning, and the Panthers won 25-15. Seahawks were at the Buccaneers in Munich, Germany. I had the Seahawks winning, and I picked them wrong again. I cannot pick them correctly. Buccaneers won this game 21-16. Vikings were at the Bills in arguably the game of the year, and I will tell you, I'm not a Bills fan, and I was erupting. It was funny because it was my dad, my cousin, and my to-be brother-in-law, and we're just sitting on the couch, watching football, and we practically all hate the Bills, and we're just like, oh man, I can't believe they didn't get that quarterback sneak. And then Josh Allen fumbles the snap is recovered. We're like, ah, and then they get the field goal, and we're like, oh, and then it goes to overtime, and we're like, ah. So, because then they get the field goal in overtime, and then Josh Allen gets the ball, he throws the interception, and I'm like, ah. So anyway, a lot of screaming. What a game. I've got to be careful and make sure that this is my unbiased view, which it's not. So I'll have to break it down more on the Babbling Bennion. Again, check out the link below. Here's my thing about Josh Allen that I want to bring up on an unbiased view, and I'll rant about this on the Babbling Bennion later. Maybe not, probably not later today. The NFL literally changed the overtime rules because the Chiefs beat the Bills last year in the AFC, in the divisional round, because Buffalo didn't get a chance to touch the ball. I just want to bring up the fact that yesterday Josh Allen touched the ball and lost the game for the Buffalo Bills. So can we put to rest, please, as an unbiased fan, can we please put to rest that Buffalo would have beaten Kansas City in the divisional round, or Buffalo deserved a chance to touch the ball, because yesterday, on Sunday, Josh Allen touched the ball and he lost the game for his team. I will give you a biased rant about that on the Babbling Bennion if you're more interested in my biased view, but I feel like it's time that we stop playing the if game. I babbled about this on the Babbling Bennion. It's time that we stop playing the if game, because we saw what happened on Sunday when Josh Allen possessed the ball and he lost the game. That's a possibility. So just remember, the if game needs to be removed from sports media. No more talking about the if game. Talk about what actually happened. What actually happened was the Vikings won arguably the game of the year at the Bills. Bills are on a 2-game losing streak. They've got 3 losses now. Knock on wood. They're now... Actually, I shouldn't even say they're now second in the AFC. They aren't even leading their division. They're actually third in their division, by the way. It goes Miami is 1, the Jets are 2, and then it's Buffalo. So, like I said, I do believe there is concern. I will say this, and no disrespect to the Vikings, I still think that the Bills have a better chance to make the Super Bowl and go win the Super Bowl than Minnesota does. Just my opinion. So anyway, Vikings at Bills. I had the Bills winning this game, and I was wrong. But again, I don't think I've ever been so happy to be wrong. So anyway, Lions at Bears. I had the Bears winning this game, and I watched this game. The Lions scored a touchdown. They went up 30-24. They missed the extra point. I looked over to my cousin, and I said, the Lions are going to win this game 31-30. And I thought I was kidding. Turned out I was right. I am a prophet. Anyway, so I had the Bears winning. They lost, so my first 4 games I was incorrect on. I was correct on my next 4. The Broncos at the Titans. I had the Titans winning, and they did win 17-10. Jaguars at Chiefs. I had the Chiefs winning 27. I had the Chiefs winning, and they did win 27-17. Just a quick side note, because obviously I watched it being a Chiefs fan. It was a very quiet four touchdown game for Patrick Mahomes. Another Babbling Bennion rant. Patrick Mahomes throws an interception. And on the play, you can tell me if you agree or disagree. He throws the ball, the defender gets one step in, and then absolutely plows him into the ground, just shoves him completely into the ground. To me, should have been a roughing the passer, which would have taken away the interception, which really would have made it practically a perfect game for Patrick. Not perfect by any means, but interceptions are always a blemish. Shouldn't have had it, in theory, in my opinion. But we're going to move right along. Browns at Dolphins. I had the Dolphins winning this game, and they did, 39-17. Texans at Giants. I had the Giants winning, and they did, 24-16. Saints at Steelers. I had the Saints winning this game, and the Steelers, I believe, coming off the bye, won this game 20-10. Colts were at the Raiders. I had the Raiders winning this game, and they, like they have all season, they blew it in the end. They ended up losing this game 25-20 in Jeff Saturday's interim head coach first game. Indianapolis gets a big road win at Las Vegas. Cowboys are at the Packers. I had the Cowboys winning, like I would guess almost everybody did, and they just straight up blew it. They ended up losing this game in overtime, 31-28. Packers win. Cardinals at Rams. This was a battle of the backups. It was Colt McCoy for the Cardinals and John Wolford for the Rams, and that just proved to be the disaster and really the end for the Rams. They ended up losing this game 17-27, so the Cardinals win 27-17. Boy, those Rams are fourth in the NFC West. I think they're in a hole. They ain't climbing out of. The defending Super Bowl champs aren't even making the postseason, let alone a run back, let alone a Super Bowl appearance in back-to-back seasons, back to big games. So, rough year for the Rams. Sunday Night Football, Chargers were at the 49ers. I had the 49ers winning this game, and they did win 22-16. And I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this. As a 49ers fan, I did want to make the mention of, with this win, they're 5-4. I get that. So they have the winning record. But I feel like there's major concern in the way of, you just went out and traded for Christian McCaffrey. Your offense is arguably the most loaded offense in the NFL with, and hear me out. I know the quarterback play is what the big argument's going to be, and I totally get that. But then I look at it's mainly I look at the pieces around. I say you've got Trent Williams at left tackle, so Garoppolo is protected very heavily and very well. From his left side, you've got Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, wide receivers. Tight end is George Kittle. And then you've got Christian McCaffrey in the backfield. The defense also is led by Fred Warner and Nick Bosa on the defensive line. This is a really, really good roster. But I feel like there's major concern. To me, 22-16 over the Chargers. Not saying that they should have pounded the Chargers. Almost just more of, if you have that offense, I just feel like you can see better success. Watching the game Sunday night, I was not very convinced, and I was not very, I didn't have peace in watching them, if that makes sense. So, Niners win. They're 5-4. It's going to be interesting to see where they go. They are second in the NFC West, and they've already beat Seattle. So we'll see what happens there for the 49ers as the season goes along. But again, I was correct on the prediction. And the game that we all had picked correctly, the Commanders at the Eagles, I picked the Eagles like everybody, and everybody was wrong. Eagles lose their first game of the season to Washington. And again, it was an 11-point game. Washington just outplayed them. Do I think it's the end of the world for Philadelphia? Yes. I will say this honestly. There is concern. And there is concern in the way of, to me, when you have a guy, like, the argument I want to make, and this again comes as a Chiefs fan, so I'm going to get in trouble for saying it this way. I look at Philadelphia and I say, if a team like Washington can beat you like they did, to me, teams can take that game film and use it to learn how to beat you. And I know the argument is, well, everyone just needs to do that with the Colts and Chiefs game, and then they'll beat the Chiefs. Like, I get where you're coming from, but the Chiefs, outside of that lost to the Bills, and otherwise they're 7-2. Like, they're 7-2, and they're the number one team in the AFC. In the way of good luck scheming to beat Patrick Mahomes. Like, I look at the Eagles and I say, to me, they're a very beatable team, just in the way of, I don't think Jalen Hurts. I look at Philadelphia, and to me, they're not the juggernaut that the Chiefs or the Bills. I would argue and put in the Ravens, if their defense can play up to the snuff. Again, and I probably maybe Minnesota. My thing with Minnesota is we've seen them play great football and lose at the most inopportune times, especially when it matters most. We've seen them lose. So it's hard to get a feel, but what I'm going for is I feel like Philadelphia's loss really means something, just because I don't personally think Philadelphia is going to go to the Super Bowl personally. I think that they're a very beatable team, and I feel like considering that they lost to Washington, it really opens up a massive target saying, hey, not only are they beatable, but they're beatable. So all due respect to obviously all teams in the league, I just think that Philadelphia could be headed for trouble. The bye weeks were Baltimore, Cincinnati, New England, and the New York Jets. They were on their bye weeks. So that is the games that I predicted correctly and incorrectly. Rapid fire for the games this week. Titans are at the Packers on Thursday Night Football. I like the Titans to win this game. Bears are at the Falcons. I'm going to pick the Bears to rebound. That's a tough one. But I'm going to pick the Bears on the road. Browns are at the Bills. I like the Bills to rebound and beat the Browns. So Bills. Eagles are at Colts. I like the Eagles to rebound and get this win. Jets are at the Patriots. I'm going to pick the Patriots. I probably shouldn't. But really, it's just a football gut thing. I'm going to pick the Patriots. I think they're going to beat the Jets this Sunday coming off of the bye week. Rams are at the Saints, and I've got the Rams winning this game. But again, a large part of it is going to be if Matthew Stafford is back. But a large part is also the fact that maybe this season's just over for the Rams. But I'm going to pick them to beat the Saints. The Lions are at the Giants. I've got the Giants winning this game. Panthers are at the Ravens. I've got the Panthers. Ravens. I have the Ravens. Panthers at Ravens. I have the Ravens. Let me make that clear. I have the Baltimore Ravens over the Carolina Panthers. The Commanders are at the Texans, and I've got the Commanders winning this game. Raiders are at Broncos, and I'm going to pick the Raiders. I just think that they've been in enough games. They beat Denver in Las Vegas earlier, and I just think that they have a really good chance of beating Denver in Denver. I like them coming off of their rough loss to Indianapolis by rebounding and beating Denver. So I've got the Raiders. Cowboys are at the Vikings. And I know, and I'm looking at this and I'm saying, what? But I'm going to go with the Cowboys. And that's a football gut thing. As I looked at this just barely, I said, oh, that's a typo. I'm picking the Vikings. But no, I'm going to pick the Cowboys. I probably shouldn't, and I'm probably going to be wrong. That's how it's been. But I'm going to pick the Cowboys over the Vikings. I just think the Vikings are going to be so physically and mentally drained, and I think the Cowboys are physically and mentally drained, but I think they're a little more motivated to get back on the right track, to rebound with a win on the road over a team who's going to be favored. Actually, I think Dallas is technically the 1-point favorite even. I'm going to pick Dallas. I'm probably going to be wrong, but my football gut says go with Dallas. So I'm going to pick the Cowboys over the Vikings. The Bengals are at the Steelers, and I've got the Bengals. Sunday Night Football. Chiefs are at the Chargers. a football gut thing, I should pick the Chargers. They've got the home field. They were on track to beat Kansas City in Arrowhead in week 2. I feel like both teams have drastically changed. I feel like the Chiefs defense has really stepped up. I should say this. When they played the Chargers, I don't believe they had Trent McDuffie. I don't believe they had Willie Gay. They'll have both those players back. I like this Chiefs defense and the way they're playing. I think the Chargers have become so interesting. I think Justin Herbert is playing injured. And I think also that the offense is really coming into swing. I like the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football winning this game. And knock on wood, should they win this game, they have an absolute stranglehold on their division. Knock on wood, which is, as a Chiefs fan, what I'd like to see, obviously. So maybe it's more just a biased pick. But I'm going to pick the Chiefs. But I won't be surprised if the Chargers win this game. They match up well and they're at home. So I've got the Chiefs beating the Chargers and on Sunday Night Football. And then Monday Night Football, the 49ers are at the Cardinals. And I like the 49ers to win this game and keep where they are in the NFC West, because obviously they need to win every game they play in the NFC West to stay afloat. Teams on bye weeks are Jacksonville, Miami, Seattle, and Tampa Bay. So that's our NFL week. Again, it gets closer and closer. The playoff picture is heating up. And again, like I just said, if the Chiefs, knock on wood, because we don't like to play the if game, should the Chiefs beat the Chargers, again, that stranglehold on the division, playoff pictures, again, are starting to form, and opportunities to win the division are going to be here in the next 3 or 4. I shouldn't say win the division, but like almost guarantee a win in the division are going to be here before we know it in the next 3-4 weeks. So the NFL is heating up. Thank you for joining. We're going to get to our final segments, and that starts, of course, with Questioning Connor is our first segment. Last week, I had one question sent from the great and the mighty and wonderful Trevor Darty. And he said, this question is near and dear to my heart, so think carefully. Should the Ravens pay Lamar Jackson a max contract? And my opinion and my answer, Trevor, and I don't know if this is the same. I don't know if we're on the same page here. My answer is yes. I believe they should, and I believe they should for the reason that, and a lot of people maybe a lot of people disagree with this. I look at the NFL and I say the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes. The Bills have Josh Allen. The Chargers have Justin Herbert. And again, and I could keep going. I'm not going to, but what I think is interesting is those are guys that the Bengals have Joe Burrow. Those are the 4 I'll use. The franchises are locked into those guys, and I believe that the Ravens can lock into Lamar Jackson because I think he is that talented. To me, everybody else in the NFL, I still feel you just don't know. I think like the Cowboys with Dak Prescott, here's the thing about Dak Prescott. I think that they're dedicated to him, but I think if something were to happen, when I say something, I just think Buffalo, there is nothing on the planet, except Patrick Mahomes maybe, that they would move to, that they would change to. So I look at the Ravens and I say, Lamar to me is the guy that they are dedicated to. And I feel like that's very rare. I get that other teams have their for sure guy in the way of, again, Dak Prescott. Let me, now because I'm interested and I kind of want to break this down, looking at standings, right? Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady's the Bucs guy, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Geno Smith. Here's the thing. I think the Seahawks are comfortable with Geno, but I don't think he's we cannot move on from this guy. Justin Herbert, again, I think that the Chargers are locked in with him. Kirk Cousins, same thing. I think they're not necessarily we can't move on from this guy. Trevor Lawrence, we can't move on from this guy. I don't think that's the case. Aaron Rodgers, Jared Goff. I think even Tua Tagovailoa, even Jalen Hurts is on here. And to me, Kyler Murray, Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo, Matthew Stafford. Those are guys that I feel if the right trade or even draft pick came along, I feel like maybe the team would make a jump at it. But with Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, and to me, Lamar Jackson, I think those are guys that you keep no matter what. Unless you're talking for a trade of one of those 5 guys that you think is going to make you better. If someone said, if the Chiefs said to Baltimore, hey, we'll trade you Patrick Mahomes for Lamar Jackson just straight up, are you interested? Then I'm moving on personally. So to answer your question, Trevor, yes, I do believe they should give him a max contract. I think he is the future, and I think you want to move forward with him, and I think you hope to continue and build his skill set. And again, in my opinion, and I hope this isn't stepping on toes, just improve his presence as a passer. He's a great runner, and you love to see that. But I think we may have even talked about this on the show. No great running quarterback has ever won without the ability to throw the ball. Steve Young is arguably the greatest scrambling quarterback in NFL history, in my opinion, at least in regards to success-wise. Winning 3 Super Bowls, again, I believe he was on the bench for 1, but I think he won 2 himself as the starting quarterback. But I look at him and I say, as a scrambling quarterback, he was tremendous, but he could throw the ball. He could sling the ball around. So I feel like the Ravens should offer him a max contract and begin work immediately on improving his passing game. So hopefully that answered your question, Trevor. My question from last week was got a little bit ahead of myself. Connor's question is what we'll conclude on. My question last week was, who do you think is the early favorite to win the college basketball championship in March? I did have this flag behind me because I did want to make mention of college basketball. I'm not going to really review it, but I did want to bring up the great, I can't remember if it's called like the Champions Classic, but in regards to basketball, I have this flag behind me because number 7 Duke plays number 6 Kansas at 7:30. That's why I've got this behind me. And then number 4 Kentucky plays Michigan State at 5 p.m. Again, 4 blue bloods going at it. So I apologize, this is a little discombobulated. This was right in the middle of my Connor's question segment, but I just remember that's why I had the flag behind me. I'm a big Duke Blue Devils fan, so I'm going to root and holler for them. Huge early game against Kansas for them. And then Kentucky against Michigan State. They just played Gonzaga really, really well. So super entertaining to watch 4 blue bloods, 2 games go at it back to back. That'll be on ESPN. But back to Connor's question to end our show today. My question was, who do you think is the early favorite, way too early favorite to win March Madness? And Trevor said, gonna be honest, I don't pay much attention to college basketball until the conference tournaments. I'm just gonna guess and say this year it will be North Carolina. Very fair. This is a really great North Carolina team. They're in the top 5 preseason poll. And Hubie Brown, I'm pretty sure it's Hubie. No, I'm trying to remember if it's Hubie Brown is their head coach. Nevertheless, they're on the right track, of course, as they appeared in the national championship last year and played Kansas really well. So that answers Connor's question. Thank you, Trevor. My question this week, let's stick with the World Cup hype. Who do you believe will be the 2022 Qatar World Cup champion? That is Connor's question for this week. Thank you so much for checking out this podcast continuously. Again, this was episode 13 of Unbiased. I've been your host, Mr. Unbiased Connor Bennion. Today is October 15th, 2022. Thank you so much. Again, remember to comment, like, subscribe, and share. Check out the link below in the description for my other podcast, The Babbling Bennion. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Again, go USA the next time next time we talk with each other, USA will have played Wales. Their World Cup journey will have began. Thank you so much for joining again. Thank you for your support. Comment, like, subscribe, share, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.